Hey there, Nation, and welcome to the show where we help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. I am Commander Cheapskate, and welcome to Season 2 of It Came From the Sump, our series dedicated to the Necromunda Community Event, co-hosted by Dr. Drybrush and myself. It Came From the Sump as a vehicle-based narrative Necromunda campaign set in the hellish depths of the Sump Sea of Necromunda. And on today's episode, we are proud to present Battle Report number 2 of this series. This battle is fought between my two friends, Dark Lord Mac and Warlord Ace. Dark Lord Mac is bringing the Everdamned, a corpse grinder cult, versus my other friend, Warlord Ace, who's playing the Velvet Privateers, a House Van Saar gang. So this is a classic mashup of a shooting-heavy gang versus a close combat gang, and only one gang can come out on top, so place your bets now, and who do you think is going to win? Now, because this video is a little bit more of a deeper dive, I will put timestamps in the description box down below so you can click and navigate to the part of the battle report that interests you the most. So without any further ado, let's go and show you guys the rosters for both the Van Saar as well as the Corpse Grinder cult. We'll be right back after this.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, dying times here.
So the scenario rule for this one is called Boarding Action. You can find the scenario in the Book of the Sump supplement that was released by the members who created Guild Sump 4 Radio. So if you get a chance, go online, check out that supplement. It's amazing. It has all these rules associated with the Sump Sea. So let's talk about the scenario rules for this one. So for this one, both gangs get their entire crew as well as their vehicle motor pools in order to fight in this scenario, and the deployment of course is standard within 12 inches of each table edge. Now on the gang tack on this one, we do use Fix It, which is compliments of Dr. Drybrush. What you do is you play this tactic for an ammo test is made for any friendly fighter, and that weapon automatically gets a 2-up ammo test. After that, you roll a d6. On a roll of 1, no further effect takes place. On a 2 to 3, the weapon gains plentiful. On a 4 to 5, it gains knockback, and on a 6, it gains the sever as well as unstable weapon traits. The resulting trait applies until the next ammo roll, at which point the ammo roll becomes a 6+, and for the remainder of the battle regardless of what it was. Now, ending the battle, of course, is standard victory conditions where you have to drive off your enemy off the tabletop. You also earn victory conditions, 1 victory point for every enemy that you put out of action, 2 victory points for champions, 3 victory points for leaders, as well as 4 victory points for enemy vehicles, and whoever has the most points ends up winning. For the rewards on this one, the winning gang earns 2d6 times 10 credits, while the loser adds 2d3 times 10 credits, and it ends in a draw. Both teams earn d3 times 10 credits for their vehicles in case you manage to wreck that in a scenario. Now for the experience, each participant gets 1 point of experience for participating in the battle report, and for reputation, the winning gang earns d3 reputation points for winning, +1 for fighting each other for the very first time, and if anybody falls out, either by force or voluntarily, they lose 1 point of reputation. So now that we're done with talking about the scenario rules, let's move on to deployments. So let's talk about deployment as well as battle tactics. As you can see, my friends are fighting on a 4x4 table. This is taking place in the Sump Sea. Everything that you see in green is the Sump Sea. And if you end up falling into that, you basically take a strength test. And if you don't take a strength, and you don't pass that strength test, you get sucked to the bottom of the Sump Sea, where you succumb to your injuries as well. And this is, of course, if you jump into it or fall into it, or whatever the case may be. The nice part about this, of course, if you jump off the top of a building directly into the Sump Sea, you receive no falling damage. So that part is quite nice. For the deployments on this one, my friend Dark Lord Mac is deployed on the far side of the table with his Corpse Grinder cults, while my friend Warlord Ace is deployed on the near side of the table with his band Saar. As for tactics, I'm really not sure what the tactics on this one is, because I am not playing in this scenario. I'm just simply taking photos for the battle report and acting as the arbitrator. So my friends, pretty much their tactics are on their own, and they want to remain secretive on this one because it's been a while since we've been playing Necromunda battle reports on the channel. Alright, so let's talk about the deployments real quick for the House Van Sars, the Violent Privateers. On the left hand side, they have Lady Alina's Revenge, which is their Technica. It's also their custom rig as well. On board that vehicle in the little cargo area is walled around the Prime Titus, the Architect, as well as Lexi, the Specialist, is armed with a suppression laser. Take up the point is Boulderon, the Augment, who's got a plasma gun, as well as Jax, which is the tech, is armed with a hotshot last gun. On the far left hand side, we have two Neo Techs. The one with the bright pink forks on his grav cutter is Silas, while the one on the far right hand side with the teal colored forks, that character's name is Delacroix. And on the island on the center of the tabletop, we have two members of the House Catalyst, the Carnival of Death. Up in the front, we have Violante, which is the Mind Frayed with the paired flails. And right behind them is a Fiordalise Menagina, which is the Mass Killer, who's got a Mastercrafted Power Sword, as well as a Last Pistol with Infrasight. And that makes up my buddy Warlord 8's deployment for this battle report. Meanwhile, on the far top corner of the table, up on the upper left-hand side, is the Everdan, which is the Corpse Grinder cult. In the middle of that big giant red warring machine is the Midnight Meat Train. It is a road initiative, drives a cargo rate ridge hauler with a refrigerated container. In the cargo hold is Boulevard the Cutter, who's armed with a chain glaive, as well as Vomitorius the Warpor. In the back, we have the last three members of the gang, which is Cargon the Butcher with his rotary flinching saw, as well as TE the Executioner, which is a butcher armed with flail, as well as a butcher's chain cleaver, as well as Griver, which is the hooded guy who carries paired butcher's chains cleavers as well. And in the room in the building in the center are the 5 Narco Scum, the Chem Fiends, who are the 5 Narco Scum given from the Narco Lords Alliance that this gang has. The Everdan rolled a 6 on their D6 to see how many fires they get, so they get all 5 of the Narco Scum on this one. We have Spine Jack Slim, Needle Vex, Crankjaw, Ashra the Drip, as well as Toxvale, and those guys are armed with a variety of last pistols and fighting knives, last pistols, as well as chain swords, and the rest of them have last guns. A few of them have grenades. And that pretty much makes up the list for deployment on the top center for my buddy Dark Lord Mac. The last of his deployment are his 3 initiates who decide to use their infiltrate special rule in order to go onto the center of the table there at the top of that shanty building. We have Choke, Shade, as well as Garrote, and those 3 guys are perfectly ambushed in order to launch attacks directly against their enemies. So with deployment over with, we go directly to the top of turn number 1, and both my friends Dark Lord Mac and Warlord Ace roll for initiative to see which of them has priority. Alright, so we go directly to the top of turn number 1, and the Corpse Grinder cult managed to get the initiative on this one, so Dark Lord Mac will be activating first, and the first thing he decides to activate are his initiates. So that takes us directly to the action phase, and the very first initiate it decides to activate is Choke, which is the initiate's armed with a flak armor initiate's mask. He's also packing a hand flamer as well as a butcher's cleaver as well. So Choke action moves up a simple action move into direct range to get a perfect angle on both members of the House Catalyst Carnival, and opens fire with his hand flare, catching both Violante as well as Fiordalise Menagina in a sheet of Promethean fire, and sets both those fighters in flame. Now the first thing he was able to do is put a serious injury directly onto Violante, the Mind Frayed, but because of the infectious terror special rule, managed to automatically put Choke directly into a pin as well, so he goes down, because the death screams of Violante, the Mind Frayed, is so terrifying, it causes everyone to shudder and take cover when it takes place. As for Fiordalise Menagina, the Mass Killer, she actually does not take any injury whatsoever. Her mesh armor is enough to protect her, but she does fail her blaze test, so because as she gets activated, she does become subject to blaze in her next activation. And because Warlord Ace does not want her to actually set on fire, he decides to activate her first. So they go through directly the blaze test. She jumps off 7 inches off the edge of the island, lands directly into the Sump Sea. Unfortunately for him, though, when he does try to take a strength test for Fiordalise Menagina, he fails the strength test. So because of that, she automatically goes directly to the bottom of the sump and gets out of actual result directly into full recovery. Now, luckily for my buddy Warlord Ace, she is an allegiance delegation, so because of that, she doesn't have to worry about taking last injuries or going to recovery, so she makes a full recovery, no problem. So going back to my buddy Warlord Ace, he decides to activate Garrote, which is his initiate's armed with Mission's Math, Flak Armor, Auto Pistol, as well as a Boning Sword. I believe he also has Zenari charges as well. He decided to activate that character in order to go after Violante. He declares a charge, and of course that character has no problem going directly into Violante. Managed to take her out with a coup de grace as well, putting her directly into full recovery as well. And luckily for my buddy Warlord Ace, this is a member of his alliance delegation, so he doesn't worry about taking lasting injuries. But at the same time, my buddy Dark Lord Mac managed to get some initiative experience points for his initiate, so that part is awesome as well. Scared of his left flank flailing him, Warlord Ace decides to activate Silas, which is his Neotech, is armed with a hand flamer. He's also got flak armor, armor buddy gun, as well as a last pistol, and he's also packing a grav cutter as well. Silas moves 8 inches directly to the left hand side with a simple action using his grav cutter, takes another basic action to open fire with his hand flamer directly into choke as well, into Garrote. Manages to set that guy on fire with that sheet of Promethean Blast. Unfortunately for Silas, the only thing he was able to do though is to pin this character. The blaze test did fail, so because of that the initiative is perfectly fine, but at least this guy won't be able to take any more actions for the rest of the round. At this point, my buddy Dark Lord Mac decides to activate his very last initiate shade. Realizing that this is not going to stand, he decides to try and do a charge directly off of the top of the shanty into the Sump Sea, dive bombing directly down onto Silas, who is below him. So with a YOLO in the air, that's exactly what he decides to do. Rolls his D3, manages to make the close of distance, so he goes jumping off directly at the top of the shanty, directly into the Sump Sea in order to tackle Silas, so the two of them can throw it down in close combat. To make matters worse, of course, my friend Dark Lord Mac, he actually gets additional attack because he's got paired weapons, 2 hand weapons, well actually a pistol and a hand weapon, as well as a charge. So this guy gets 3 attacks directly into Silas. So because of this, Shade decides to attack with both their pistol, which is a stub gun, as well as their flinching knife. Magic hits Silas twice and puts serious injuries on both those rolls as well. So because of that, Silas does go down. And because he did charge directly into him in close combat with a serious injury roll, basically puts a coup de grace on him, puts him directly out of action without cold result. So just like that, my buddy Warlord Ace has actually lost one of his key members of his gang in the first turn. Deciding that vengeance is actually the best course of action, what ends up happening that my buddy Warlord Ace decides to activate his second Neotake. His name is Delacroix. And Delacroix actually does 2 basic actions. The first thing it does, of course, is a swoop attack with his grav cutter directly into Shade. Managed to put 2 flesh wounds directly on the character because of the knockback rule. Managed to go right past his toughness, put 2 damage directly on that initiative, suffering 2 flesh wounds as well. At the same time, he also does a 180 turnaround when he moves through his swoop attack. Tries to take a single shot with his last pistol in order to cause some injury as well, but unfortunately for my buddy Warlord Ace, he missed the shot with the last pistol. Smelling blood in the air, my buddy Dark Lord Mac decides to activate the Midnight Meat Train, which is his Cargo 8 Rich Hauler. Decides to go with a double movement forward so that way he can close the distance towards the Velvet Privateers of House Van Saar. And the Midnight Train goes rumbling forward 40 inches, crossing directly into the middle of the table. Looks like my buddy's going to try to swoop around the flank and try to attack that island there on the bottom of the table. So that way his corpse grinders can start swarming against the Van Saar. Meanwhile, Warlord Ace has a group activation with Raldoron. His prime is armed with a combat pistol, has a last pistol as well as a melta gun to it. He also decides to activate his Architect Titus as well as his tech specialist Lexi, armed with a suppression laser, and all 3 of those fighters head directly to the left hand side to start reinforcing that island and protecting the left hand flank. As you can see, all 3 fighters do basic action, get off the vehicle, another simple action, move forward, and they end up on the bottom edge of that island, just kind of skirting the edge, making their way to the pinned initiates who are in the middle of that concrete island. Meanwhile, Dark Lord Mac decides to activate one of his narco scum, a character named Crankjaw, who's armed with a last pistol as well as a fighting knife and frag grenades. Decides to do a move action with that character. And as you see, Crankjaw does a double movement directly across that catwalk, directly into the concrete island in the center of the table. Looks like he's making his way to that bridge to head directly towards that island where the rest of the Van Saar gang is mobilizing. Meanwhile, across the other side of the table, Dark Lord Mac decides to activate his Technico, who drives Lady Alina's Revenge, decides to do a simple action move up forward and a basic action open fire with the mining laser, going to try to cripple the Midnight Meat Train as best he can. So as you can see in this photo, the Lady Alina's Revenge does move forward and turns 45-degree angle to put a last cannon shot from their mining laser directly into the Midnight Meat Train. Unfortunately for my buddy Warlord Ace, though, he does miss the shot, and he also takes a ammo roll as well. But the mining laser is a 3+ ammo roll, so no harm, no foul. Managed to pass that, no problem. Unfortunately, though, he missed his shot directly against the Midnight Meat Train, which could have been really powerful because mining lasers are no joke. Going back to Dark Lord Mac and his Everdam, he decides to activate his Spine Jack Slim, another member of the Kim Fiends. Narco Scum is armed with a last pistol as well as chainsword, and he decides to do a double move with this character as well. As you can see, Spine Jack Slim does a move across that catwalk, ended right behind Crankjaw. Looks like they're going to try to assault and take up defensive positions in the middle concrete island that's located in the middle of the table. So Warlord Ace decides to do a group activation real quick with Balderon, his Augmeg, who's armed with a plasma gun, as well as with Jax, who is his tech, who's armed with a hotshot last gun. Decides to have Jax open fire first, and the reason why is because when Dark Lord Mac moved those two Hive Scums directly to the table, those two Hive Scum actually become the closest targets for target priority. So because that, what ends up happening is that Warlord Ace wants Balderon, his Augmeg, to use a maximum charged plasma shot against the Midnight Meat Train, but he can't do that because there is a Narco Scum in the way. So he decides to have Jax's tech open fire first with the hotshot last gun, hopefully get that Narco Scum out of the way, so that way Balderon can then open fire with his plasma gun. And that's exactly what ends up happening. Jax takes a basic action to aim with his hotshot las gun, so he's got a 2-up to hit with that ballista skill. Has no problem putting the hurt directly on the Crankjaw. Puts a serious injury onto that Narco Scum, so because it goes crashing face down into the cold concrete and is currently bleeding out. To make matters worse for the Everdamned as well, Spine Jack Slim, which is the Narco Scum with the chainsword, fails his cool test, which is not surprising. He is a Hive Scum. He's got 8+ on his cool, and he flees back, having 5 inches right behind that cargo container there, taking cover because he doesn't want to get shot at anymore. And of course, what this does, it also frees up Balderon. Balderon takes a basic action, take aim with his ballista skill with his plasma gun, just because he has to shoot through the little gantries of the bridge ahead of him, giving him -1 to his ballista skill. So by aiming, he's still at his basic 2+ ballista skill, is no joke. And he also takes a supercharged maximal charge on his plasma gun, and he opens fire directly onto the Midnight Meat Train. And that's exactly what he does. Manages to put a penetrating shot directly into the crew of the Midnight Meat Train, hitting the road initiatives piloting the vehicle, put a flesh wound that character as well. And you'll need to roll up in the end phase and see if he still has that flesh wound. Also causes him to have minus to his ballista skill as well as some other penalties. So that was actually a really powerful charge being fired out by Balderon. So those plasma guns, man, they are no joke. And since Warlord Ace does not have any more fighters left on the tabletop, the rest of the turn is dedicated to my buddy Dark Lord Mac, and what he decides to do, of course, is to swarm forward with the rest of his Narco Scum. He's Ashford the Drip, who's armed with a last gun and photo goggles, basically does a move activation, goes right to the bottom of the catwalk there. Then after that we have Toxvale, which is another Narco Scum, who's armed with a last gun as well as frag grenades taking point, and right behind them, of course, is another character named Needle Vex, who's armed with a last gun with a telescopic sight as well as a stub gun, and his Narco Scum kind of occupied that center concrete island. So with the action phase over, we go directly to the end phase, and the first person we start off, of course, is with the Midnight Meat Train. The road initiate managed to shake off the flesh wound that they received by rolling a 4-up, so because of that, the driver of this vehicle can now operate it effectively without any further complications. At the same time, the Narco Scum Crankjaw, who took a hit earlier in the battle report, he actually manages to survive with the flesh wound. So he rolls over and he'll be able to participate in the rest of the battle. Now, he is easier to wound because he has toughness 2, but he still has a last gun, a last pistol and a knife. He can still move, he can still fight, he can still shoot, still very much in danger. And at the same time as well, Shade, the initiate who basically fell into the Sump Sea, managed to pass his strength test because he does not drown, even though he's inside the Sump Sea. So he's still swimming, still can fight, still cause problems. And that takes us directly to the end of turn number 1. Here's an overhead shot of the entirety of the tabletop so that we can see exactly what's happening. Looks like the Velvet Privateers are going to try to scoot around the right-hand side to try to flank the advancing forces of the Everdand as they come straight down the middle as well as the left-hand side of the tabletop. That's actually really dangerous for my buddy Warlord Ace because everyone knows Corpse Grinder cults are extremely dangerous in the clinch as well as in close combat. So he's got to buy himself some time by trying to, looks like he's what he's trying to do is take out that vehicle so those guys can't actually close a distance as well. Meanwhile, he's also got fighters on that concrete on the bottom of the table trying to stop the assault on the left hand side with those initiates. So with that being said, we go directly to the top of turn number 2 and both my friends roll off initiative to see which of them has priority. So we go directly to the top of turn number 2. My buddy Warlord Ace managed to get the initiative on this one, so because of that, Houseman Saar and his Velvet Privateers will be going first in this turn. So for Warlord Ace's very first activation, he decides to activate a group activation with Baldur on his Augmech, who also does a group activation with the Technica who's driving Lady Alina's Revenge. And so because of that, Lady Alina's Revenge will move first and then followed by Baldur with his actions. So once again, Lady Alina's Revenge does a similar action move up forward, so that way it does not fall by a basic action open fire with its mining laser directly into the side of the Midnight Meat Train. So he opens up with that mining laser and manages to get a catastrophic hit directly onto the crew. So the bite blast of laser fire going directly into the side of the Midnight Meat Train causes a blackout with a catastrophic hit directly to the driver of the vehicle as well. So the driver is now blacked out and he passes out. Luckily for the Corpse Grinder cults and for my buddy Dark Lord Mac though, his road initiative does manage to pass his handling test. So because of that, the Midnight Meat Train just basically stops. So there's no further harm right now. So because he got it very, very lucky on that roll. So once again, the second part of the activation goes to Baldur, who takes a basic action aim with his plasma gun. So that we can fire through the gantries and the girders of that bridge that's in his way, so that way he still fires a Ballista Skill 2+, and once again does a maximal charge on his plasma gun and opens fire directly into the side of the Midnight Meat Train. And the Midnight Meat Train got really lucky on this one, managed to take a glancing hit directly to the drive, which basically caused the vehicle to be stalled momentarily, which is perfectly fine though for my buddy Dark Lord Mac because his driver is currently blacked out, so the vehicle's not going anywhere anyways. So going back to the bottom of the table, Dark Lord Mac decides to activate his Initiate Garrote, which is the Initiator's arm with a auto pistol, boning sword, as well as incendiary charges. He takes a basic action to stand up, and he takes another basic action to open fire with his incendiary charges, lobbing it directly into the Archaeotech. That character's name is Titus, throwing it and directly rolling a 6 with a direct hit with that incendiary charge. Now, incendiary charges are great because they have a 5-inch blast template, and as you can see, not only does it manage to catch Baldur, also manages to catch Lexi as well, which is a specialist, as well as Walderon the Primers in the back too. Barely miss hitting Delacroix, as well as his fellow initiate Shade, who's on the very bottom there as well. If you notice, we just kind of angled the blast template just because we just couldn't hold it up, but you get the idea how it's kind of sprinting around and setting these guys on fire. So a lot of things end up happening with that Molotov cocktail going off. First of all, Lexi fails her initiative test, goes directly into the drink, and at the same time the flames cuts through her armored body glove as well as her flak armor, puts her serious injury directly onto her, so now she's face down directly in the muck and she actually faces the risk of actually drowning. At the same time, Titus also fails the Archaeotech also fails his initiative test. He falls directly into Sump Sea as well, and it also cuts through his flak armor and armored body glove and also puts a wound on him directly as well. He is still just pinned right now, so he's perfectly fine. At the same time, rolled around though, he gets set on fire. Doesn't wound him at all, but he is now currently on fire, and to make worse, he has to take a cool test in order to see if he manages to stay his ground because Lexi got a serious injury put on her. Now you would think that a Prime for Advanced Art game would have no problem passing his cool test because he's got a 5 of cool. My buddy Warlord Ace rolls a 3, so because of that, Walderon runs. And so he goes takes about 6 inches directly behind the shanty, just because he doesn't want to get set on fire anymore and get hurt from all the stuff that's flying around. And of course, he loses activations for the rest of the turn to the end phase, and he's also on fire too, which is horrible. To make matters worse, Delacroix also fails his cool test as well because he only got a cool of 8. So because he does go flying, I think 8 inches directly to the other side of the concrete island, just because he just saw his friend get set on fire and get thrown directly into Sump Sea, and he can't handle it. So that part was absolutely horrific. So because that Warlord Ace decides to go with his next activation, decides to activate Titus Archaeotech. He doesn't want his Archaeotech drowning directly into the Sump Sea, so he does a basic action to try to, well, first of all, he's got to see if he sinks, first of all, so he takes his little strength test to see if he sinks. Luckily for him, though, Titus does pass his strength test, takes a basic action to get back on his feet again, another basic action to get out of there. As you can see, Titus also climbs up directly to the top of the building there where the shanty is located on the top of that island, so that way he doesn't have to worry about drowning by the end phase. Meanwhile, Dark Lord Mac decides to activate Choke, which is initiated armed with a hand flamer as well as a butcher chains cleaver. Does a simple action to get out of the basic action in order to escape pinning. And he stands up and opens fire with his hand flamer, and he just barely makes it but manages to catch poor Delacroix in the blast of his flamer template. So because that Delacroix does get hit with a flash of fire, getting directed fire by that initiate Choke opening up with that hand flamer of his. To make matters worse, Delacroix rolls a 1 for his armor save, so because of the flames go right to him, it also puts a serious injury directly onto Delacroix as well. So because he goes crashing directly into the drink, and he is currently have to fight out drowning at the same time he has to worry about getting out of action during the end phase as well. Now luckily for him though, he does pass his blaze test because he's not currently on fire, but things are not looking very good right now for Delacroix. So running out of options, my buddy Warlord Ace decides to activate Jax, which is his tech, his arm with the hotshot last gun. Unfortunately though, he does miss his shot. He was trying to take a pot shot directly at the hives, the narco scum that are flooding on the right hand side, but he rolls a 1 to hit, so that part was tragic. So no more fighters left to activate, my buddy Dark Lord Mac is the next person to go for the rest of the turn. He decides to activate his initiate Shade. Shade manages to pass his strength test so he doesn't go sinking directly into the sump. And instead of sticking around to actually put any kind of harm directly onto the sinking Lexi, who's right there on the right hand side, he decides that caution is better than valor and decides to take a simple action to climb up directly to the top of the concrete island and get back onto land again, so that way he doesn't worry about sinking to the sump again. Meanwhile, the rest of the Everdamned who are on board of the Midnight Meat Train decided probably it's time to heli on and to disembark from the vehicle, just because that way they want to close the distance and start getting their blades directly into the Velvet Privateers. So my buddy Dark Lord Mac does a group activation with Boulevardist Cutter, who also does a group activation with Vomitorius, the Warp Horror. Both those characters take a simple action in order to disembark from the Midnight Meat Train, another simple action to move directly onto the concrete island there on the left hand side, getting onto the side as well as behind is that green cargo container. Dark Lord Mac then also does a group activation with Kargon as Butcher, who's armed with a rotary flensing saw, as well as Te the Executioner, who's Butcher armed with a flail, as well as a Butcher chain cleaver, and Griver, who is also a Skinner armed with paired Butcher chain cleavers. All three of those fighters take a simple action to disembark from the Midnight Meat Train, and another simple action to move directly onto the concrete island behind that green cargo container. And the rest of the turn is pretty much dedicated to the narco scum of the Kim Fiends. The first guy gets activated first is Crankjaw. Crankjaw takes a basic action to get back on his feet again, and another simple action to move forward directly towards the center bridge in the middle of the table. As you can see, he takes a position right there directly at the entrance of the bridge, making his way directly to the bottom of the table where the rest of the Van Saar can be found. Meanwhile, Asher the Drip does exactly the same thing. She is the Anarcho Scum, who's armed with the last gun of photo goggles. That's the character there. It's kind of on the right hand side of the tabletop. Does a move action to move up forward to go right behind Crankjaw. Does take a basic action as well to open fire with their last gun directly on the Van Saar, but unfortunately for her though, she misses her shot. Talks Vale, who is the fighter who is also armed with a last gun as well as a frag grenade, he also does a simple action to move up forward and does a basic action to open fire directly into Jax with his last gun. He does manage to hit Jax the tech, who's armed with the hot shot last gun, but unfortunately though he doesn't wound, so because that Jax is only pinned, Jax does pass his initiative test, so he stays on board the vehicle and doesn't fall directly into the Sump Sea. And I do apologize for the blurriness of this image. I didn't really see it until I actually started doing the battle report, so I do apologize for that. The rest of the Narco Scum actually follow suit. So we have Needle Vex. He tries to move up and tries to open fire with his gun, also fails his shot as well. Toxville does exactly, what's his name? Now at the same time, Spine Jack Slim, who's a Narco Scum, who's armed with the last pistol and chainsword. He does a double move directly to go right next to Crankjaw, and the two of them get prepared to cross that bridge into fighting against the Van Saar on the other side of the table. So the action phase over with, we go directly to the end phase, and unfortunately for my buddy Warlord Ace, he tries to roll for Raldoron his prime to see if he passes his cool check to see if he's not broken. He unfortunately rolls a 3 again, so because of that, Raldoron is still broken, which is absolutely devastating for my buddy Warlord Ace, because Raldoron has that really powerful multi-gun that can just tear through anything that's coming his way, especially that Warp Horde that's going to try to close ranks and try to hurt him. To make matters worse, he does take a strength test for Lexi, his tech specialist, and unfortunately she fails it, so because of that she goes automatically out of action because of some scene basically kind of subdues her. When she rolls up for a lasting injury on this one, she actually rolls convalescence, so because of that she goes into recovery and she'll miss out on her next battle report. Now as for Delacroix, he does pass his strength test, so he doesn't worry about drowning directly into the Sump Sea. However, though, when he rolls for his injury dice, though, he rolls an out of action result, so because of that, he also takes a lasting injury. When he rolls for the lasting injury for this one, he takes convalescence as well, so because of that, he will go into recovery, and he will also miss out on his next battle as well. And that takes directly to the end of turn number 2. As you can see, the Van Saar slowly falling one by one, and the rest of the Corpse Grinder cult still has the majority of their gang left, and they're now ready to close the distance and try to fully envelop the Van Saar and destroy them in close combat. However, my friend Warlord Ace does not want to lose any more fighters than he currently has, because he still wants to be able to participate in next week's battles, so because of that, he decides to concede the game and voluntarily bottle out, thus ending the game and achieving a victory for my buddy Dark Lord Mac, as well as the Ever Damned of the Corpse Grinders cult. So because of that, this battle report is now officially over. We're going to go directly to the post game, and we'll see you guys on the flip side.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.
Alright y'all, so now it's time for the after action report. This is the part of the battle report we talk about what went well, what went poorly, and what we plan for the next time that we do battle. This is the after action report for our Necromunda Community Event battle report number 2, fought between Dark Lord Mac of the Ever Damned from the Corpse Grinder cult versus my buddy Warlord Ace with his Private Velveteers of the Van Saar. So unfortunately the Van Saar did lose this battle report, so let's talk about their post-game activities. For the injuries, Fury Release, Menagina, Violante, the Mind Freight, as well as Silas, the Neotech, all three of those guys make full recoveries because they got out cold results during the battle. Unfortunately, Lexi, the tech specialist, as well as Delacroix, the Neotech, suffered convalescence, so because of they both go into recovery and they will miss out on their next battle report as well. For advancements, nobody advanced at this time, and from their territories, they earn 1 point of reputation as well as earn 30 credits from that territory. Now their alliance with House Callus, of course, still remains strong, so no harm there. And from the trading posts, they earn 30 credits from their territory as well as 40 credits from the scenario, giving them 70 credits in total. With those 70 credits, they actually spent 50 of those credits to recruit Victor Vector, who is a rogue doc for the gang, so now they have that to hang around for their gang. At the same time, also spent 10 credits for flak armor for Jax, which is the tech who's armed with the hotshot last gun, so now he's got a 5-up armor save. They take the 10 remaining credits left and they put that directly into their stash. For the reputation, they earn 1 point of reputation from their territory as well as +1 reputation for fighting against the Ever Damned for the very first time, but because Warlord Ace decided to voluntarily bottle out in this battle report, he loses 1 point of reputation, which brings his grand total reputation value to 1. His current record now is at 0 wins and 1 loss, and his new gang rating now is at 1,710 points. So let's go ahead and talk about Dark Lord Mac with his Ever Damned, which is his Corpse Grinder cult. He actually won the scenario. For injuries, he's actually suffered no injuries for this one. And for advancements, his 3 initiates, Choke, Shade, and Garrote, all 3 of those guys decided to spend their 4 experience points to level 1. At the same time, earn +1 to their cool characteristics, dropping their cool characteristics down to a 6+ for those 3 fighters, and also increasing their value by 10 credits. From their territories, from their settlement, they earn 1 point of reputation. At the same time, he also also rolled his 2d6, rolled 1/6 to recruit a new initiate. That character's name is the Fireworm. He's a brand new initiate. He's got flak armor as well as initiate mask. At the same time, he also earned 50 credits from that territory. And because he actually won this scenario, he actually drew from our playing cards and pulled out a Promethean cache, which means now that 3 of his fighters get incendiary charges for free, which is just hilarious because his gang has been using template as well as fire blaze attacks the entire battle report and been screwing up their enemies left, right, and center. At the same time, they can also re-roll any rolls for any blaze weapons they might have as well because of that Promethean stash. Now for their alliance, they have to suffer the payment due downside of being an alliance with the Narco Scum, which means that to pay them D3 times 10 credits. When they rolled a 1, so because it only has to take 10 credits in order to maintain the alliance with the Narco Lords, which is well worth it because he has all those extra fighters in his gang, so he pays those 10 credits no problem. At the same time, from the trading post, he earns 50 credits from his territories, as well as 30 credits from the Midnight Meat Train's valuable cargo special rule, and he also earned 100 credits from the scenario, giving him a grand total of 180 credits in total. With those 180 credits, he spent 10 credits in order to pay off his alliance with the Narco Lord, so that way he still maintains that alliance with his gang. He also spent 55 credits to purchase a hand flamer as well as a boning sword for the Fireworm, which is a brand new initiative that he got from a settlement. At the same time, he also spent 45 credits to purchase the Grizzly trophies for the Midnight Meat Train because he kept on getting shot the entire time. Now what the Grizzly trophies do is that basically it makes your opponents have to take a willpower test first for them to open fire directly onto your vehicles. So that's going to make the vehicle a little bit more survivable. You can find this in the Feast for Heretics supplement of the Necromunda Apocrypha supplements that are on the Warhammer community page. At the same time, he also spent another 65 credits to recruit a brand new Skinner to his gang. That character's name is Canto the Cleaver. He's a butcher who's got plate mail, a Skinner's mask, as well as armed with a two-handed axe. So because of that, Skinner now is part of the group too. At the same time, he also took the 5 remaining credits he left over and put it directly into his stash. For his reputation, he earns 1 point of reputation for the settlement as well as 1 point of reputation fighting against the Velvet Privateers for the very first time. He also earns 3 points of reputation for the scenario, giving a grand total of 5 reputation in total. His new record now is at 1 win and 0 losses, and his new gang rank now is at 1,910 points. So there you guys have it. That is battle report number 2 of the Necromunda Community Event hosted by Dr. Drybrush and myself, which takes place in the Sump Sea. Please, by all means, feel free to share with us the things that you guys are doing with your Necromunda hobby and actually putting it to both of us. This community event is open to anybody who wants to participate. You can check out both Dr. Drybrush as well as my channel for further information about that. And if you haven't done so yet, go and subscribe to Dr. Drybrush. His narrative abilities alone with Gutterforge FM, radio station 66.6, which is the radio narrative we're using to deliver weekly updates for a campaign, is there as well. It's highly entertaining. Check out his channel. He deserves it. Give him a sub at the same time. So that's going to do it with this video, guys. As always, please feel free to like, comment, and or subscribe. Your guys' input is valuable to us as always. I am Commander Cheapskate. I will catch you guys in the next video. Peace out and stay classy.